Recording in progress.
Good evening, folks. Welcome to the City of Cupertino Planning Commission meeting for November 21st, 2021. Welcome here. As you know, in accordance with government code, this is a teleconference meeting without a physical location to help stop the spread of COVID. And of course, if you wish to comment on the agenda, you can do it by email before 5 p.m. on a Tuesday before the meeting. And of course, you can email comments during the time for public comment during the meeting. Send it to planningcommission@cupertino.org. And the staff liaison will read those emails in for the record. And of course, hopefully you're joining here on the teleconference. So with that, we'll turn it over to our team to do a roll call.
Thank you, Commissioner Wong. I'm gonna do a roll call today. I'm sorry, I'm a little nervous. Commissioner Scharf.
Present.
Commissioner Capil. Commissioner Capil.
Yes, I'm here.
Commissioner Saxena.
Yes.
Commissioner Maripatla.
I'm here.
Chair Wong.
Present, and I believe Commissioner Capil is here. I see a nod for those that are following and are visually impaired. So here we go.
Thank you.
Very cool. All right. Well, first item on our agenda, and before we begin, we will switch items number 2 with number 3 for those who are following along. But our first item on the agenda is, of course, our approval of minutes. So let's take the time, read the October 26th Planning Commission minutes, and we'll spend a few minutes looking at that, and of course, looking for a motion to approve or any changes or amendments to those draft minutes.
So if everyone read it, I would like to make a motion to approve the meeting minutes.
Happy to provide a second, anybody? All right. Commissioner Saxena has waived a second for this for following along visually. So here we go. Okay. Any comments? If not, we'll call for a vote. Okay, let's call for a vote. Honors yours, Pew.
Thank you, Chair Wong. Commissioner Capil. Commissioner Scharf.
Aye.
Commissioner Maripatla.
Yes.
Commissioner Saxena.
Yes.
Chair Wong.
Yes.
Just for the record, I would like to state that I can't hear Commissioner Capil. I'm not sure if his audio is audible to anybody else.
Yeah, no, we couldn't hear him.
Okay.
Let's quickly test audio. Commissioner Capil, are you able to communicate with us? Please say something. Okay, we can't hear Commissioner Capil. So
Try unplugging your headset and see if that works.
You probably know how to do this, but in the case you don't, on the speaker side, where you see the button mute, click on the up arrow and see if you can select a microphone. And if you're on a Mac, same as systems, we'll take wherever you are, or choose the microphone that's working for you. If none of those toggle switch works, we'll hold a little bit for you to come back and log in before we bring the next area. So see if we can get you up there. So yeah. While we're waiting for that, I believe we don't have any other items in terms of postponements, but do we have any oral communications that we can kind of start that process as well? So let's start with that. So this is the portion of the meeting that's reserved for persons wishing to address the commission on any matter within the jurisdiction of the commission and not on the agenda. So those two things are important. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes. We will do a countdown, of course. And of course, in most cases, state law will prohibit the commission from making any decisions with respect to matters not on the agenda, though we might sometimes comment as necessary. So with that, I've got a couple of names up here, people with their hands raised. We'll do that, and let's get Mr. Commissioner Capil on board along the way. If you need anything, Commissioner Capil, please use the chat function, and we'll make sure we capture what you want to stay. So our first person is Kylie Clark, followed by Jenny Griffin, and of course, Lisa Warren. So Kylie, please go ahead. We'll give you your 3 minutes.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kylie, and I'm the Public Policy Coordinator at West Valley Community Services. I want to make some comments this evening in response to the statements made about homelessness at previous Planning Commission meetings. Homelessness is a very real issue, and Cupertino is no exception. A quarter of our clients live in Cupertino, and with the city's high housing rates and lack of affordable housing, this is really no surprise. all of California is dealing with more unhoused individuals than ever. According to the 2020 Annual Homeless Assessment Report, 41 of every 10,000 people in California were homeless. 70% of homeless people in the state were without shelter. California experienced a 14.6% increase in homeless families from 2019 to 2020. The state reported the largest numbers of homeless unaccompanied youth in the nation, 12,172 people, accounting for nearly 1/3 of all unaccompanied youth nationally. And on any given night in Santa Clara County, there are 10,000 individuals sleeping outside and 20,000 families at risk of losing their homes. Homelessness not only impacts the individuals and families who experience it, but it has a real and a measured impact on everyone in the community. A 2015 study titled Home Not Found, The Cost of Homelessness in Silicon Valley, found that our region spent $520 million annually for public safety, healthcare, criminal justice, and other public services attributed to homelessness. Now imagine if we could have spent that money on housing those folks instead, helping them build a pathway to long-term stability, self-sufficiency, and self-determination. At WVCS, we serve more than 120 unhoused households, almost all of whom live at least part-time in Cupertino, providing services such as low-income housing, food via our WVCS market and our Parket Market, which is our mobile food delivery, financial coaching, emergency rental and deposit assistance, transportation support, and more. Additionally, through our Haven to Home program, we've placed 20 chronically homeless households in housing, and through case management, we're supporting them to maintain their housing. There are several new initiatives happening in and around our communities to end homelessness, such as safe park programs and job training. Furthermore, zoning is beginning to change to include more household types, and the housing element will provide an opportunity to create a pathway to ending homelessness in our community. However, these initiatives and recommendations are just a start. We need to be prepared to do much more if we truly believe in building a community where every person has food on the table and a roof over their head, our vision at West Valley Community Services. That's why we invite you to join us in working toward ending homelessness. If we all do our part, we will see real, tangible change, and we would truly love to work with you to accomplish this. Thank you so much, and thank you for all that you do.
Hey, Kylie, please stay on. So really appreciate you coming here today and talking about that. Happy to work with you if you're still here. Oh, you just dropped off. Okay. Well, Kylie, if you're still here and listening, we would love to know who's got documented list of Cupertino's address among the homeless and what we can do to help. So happy to connect with you. Feel free to send me an email at rwang@cupertino.org. We'd love to know the actual registrations of folks who are in Cupertino and what we can do to help. So thank you for being here. Our next guest is Jenny Griffin. Please join us.
Thank you, Chair Wong. Hi, I'm Jennifer Griffin, and I just was very, very concerned about what is in store for us next year with these housing bills. As people remember, in December of last year, SB 9 and SB 10 were introduced, I believe, by Senator Wiener and some other folks. And look where we are now. The governor has signed them. We're going into an uncertain, as far as I'm concerned, a complete disaster in January because of 9 and 10. They have pushed unrest in the state. I have grave doubts about where the governance of this state is going. People who have backed 9 and 10 have taken certain liberties with not allowing the public to make comments about 9 and 10. I am extremely wary of the intentions of the groups that are backing 9 and 10 and other housing bills. These are not groups that are trying to provide housing for homeless people. These are money ventures, and the people that are supporting 9 and 10, some of them have full-time jobs at these charities paid for by the backing money to push 9 and 10. I have a lot of great concerns about them. No one has asked the public about them, and we're the ones that are being completely affected by it. And I really hope that we're not going to see more of this next year, because as far as I'm concerned, there's a lot of politicians in this state that are taking liberties with the public's goodwill and what we will believe in and tolerate in this, but I have lost complete faith in Sacramento and the politicians. I have grave concerns about where the governor is going as he governs this state. So keep your eyes out. I'm sure we're going to have lots of interesting and very, very bizarre housing bills. I think there's a complete attempt to take over the state as some sort of a socialist communist government. That's my take. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny. Appreciate your comments. I think there's a group that's working on getting local land use back in a statewide initiative. So hopefully you participate in that. Lisa, please join us. Thank you. You have 3 minutes.
Hi, thanks. So this is quick. I sent you all as a group, as a CC, an email early this morning related to how, well, it's related.
Is this the Main Street restaurant?
Correct. Thank you. So I just want to make sure that, well, I want to request that you all make sure that you read it if you haven't already, because I think it's important. Thank you. That's it.
Oh, do you want to elaborate on that while you're on stage here?
Well, the elaboration is, I don't understand why there's confusion as to the fact, and I think it's pretty well documented fact that there's already too much restaurant space at Main Street based on what was approved in 2012. And I have been led to believe in several directions that there's another restaurant wanting to come in, which I've been asking not to allow. We need real retail in this city. And, you know, the whole climate action plan coming up, I would think that people would be screaming for retail that is, you know, everyday necessity retail for the residents of Cupertino, because if you have retail in your own city, you're more apt to get there to the grocery, to pharmacies, to, you know, dentists, small medical offices. You're more likely to get there by foot or by bike and leave a smaller footprint if you do drive, if it's within your own city. And building developments that are primarily restaurants doesn't do the trick. So, but more importantly, it's going against what was directed. And frankly, I don't know why the leasing company for this project and many others isn't aware of it. And if they are, why they're choosing not to follow the direction. So any help we can get to get Trader Joe's in there in that old Target building would be great, or something similar. Especially if we're going to have thousands of housing units basically across the street, and there's no other grocery nearby within city limits. So there, I said way more than I wanted to, but thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. I don't know what we can do to ask staff what the scenario is for that. Maybe we can get a response at some point. It's not on the agenda, so at some point we can actually figure out where that's going. It's not on the agenda, so we can't really take action on that. But hopefully we can get some clarification as to what the limits are at Main Street and what applications are in place. It'd be nice to know that in advance. So I'll leave it at that. Any other comments from the public? Okay, don't see any. Going once, going twice. We will move on in our agenda. Okay, let's check in on Commissioner Kapil. Let's do a sound check. Are you able to get on?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Oh, yes, you're in now. Congratulations. All right, we're now one team. So thank you for being there. Okay, with that, we're going to switch the order of the public hearings, as I mentioned earlier. Let's do number 3 first. And that is consider a development proposal to demolish an existing commercial building and residential unit, remove and replace 4 protected trees, and construct a mixed-use development consistent of 18 units, which is 5 apartments, 5 single-family homes, and 8 townhomes, and a 4,500 square feet of commercial space. So you can follow us. The applications are here. Our applicant Dan Chow is here from SCR Enterprises, and this is the location at 10625 South Foothill Boulevard. I'll read the APN number for Fund 342-16-087 and, of course, -088. The recommended action by the staff is that the Planning Commission adopt the draft resolutions recommending that the City Council, 1, adopt the mitigating negative declaration, 2, approve the zoning map amendment, 3, approve the development permit, 4, approve the tentative map, 5, approve the architectural and site approval, ASA, and approve the use permit, and, of course, approve the tree removal permit that is there. With that, let's turn it over to our staff. Pew, all yours.
Thank you. Good evening, Planning Commission. This project is actually being spearheaded by our senior planner, Eric Serrano, so I will take this opportunity to hand it over to him for his presentation tonight.
Welcome back, Eric.
Thank you. Good evening, Commissioners. As you mentioned, I will be presenting on the item. I'll share my screen. Great. Can everybody see that okay?
Looks good. We can see it, so please go ahead.
Okay, so the project is at 10625 South Foothill Boulevard. This is the project location, so it's right where South Foothill and Stevens Canyon meet, adjacent to McClellan and St. Andrews. So the property is bounded by single-family residents to the north, west, and south. Across to the east, you have a series of duplexes and townhomes on the other side of the road. As mentioned, the project involves the demolition of the existing structures on the site and the construction of 18 residential units and 4,500 square feet of current commercial space. The project will require the approval of a zone change, development permit, architectural site approval, tenant map, and tree removal permit. So the property is has a land use designation of commercial residential. As I mentioned, there will be a zone designation change or zone map change to have it be planned development with general commercial residential. The net lot area is 1.37 acres and the gross lot area is 1.546. The density at this site is 15 dwelling units to the acre and has a maximum height allowed of 30 feet. So this is just the project site. Building 1 is the mixed-use building where the commercial component is located. Below that is the underground parking, and above that are the apartments. The rest of the property has the different single-family unit types, duplexes, and duplexes, triplexes, and detached townhomes. So with the development regulations, the height complies with the general plan. The maximum height again here is 30 feet, and all the buildings have been designed to be below that. They vary but in different variants or different building types, but generally they are all below the 30-foot height limit. In terms of density, so the project proposes a density of 12.98 dwelling units to the acre, so that's less than the general plan density. Setbacks, they're unique to the site. It varies quite a bit. It's detailed in the staff report, the different setbacks, but they range from 0 at that front building to about 15 on the sides of some of the buildings, but again, they vary. In regards to the open space, so the project, we worked with the applicant to kind of base it off of the heart of the city specific plan. So the private open space has a minimum of 60 feet, that's 60 square feet where they started, but that varies. So the apartments have a little bit, around 60, a little bit more. And then the other kind of townhome units have up to 591 square feet. There is a common residential open space as well on the project, measuring about 2,990 square feet. And then there's a commercial open space as well, common open space of 1,657 square feet. And that space is mainly to provide some active uses for the commercial use for whoever ends up going in there. In terms of parking, so the commercial component is parked at a rate of 1 for every 250 square feet of commercial space. So that is about 18 unit or 18 parking stalls. The apartments are parked at 2 units or 2 spaces per unit, and then the other units are parked at 2.8 with 2 in the garage, and then the 0.8 kind of spread out on throughout the site. There is a requirement for some commercial for bicycle parking for the commercial component, which requires, or which the applicants provided 5 class 1 and 18 class 2 parking or bicycle parking. So this is another site plan kind of showing the landscaping that the project will be doing. So again, one of the project again is off Stevens Canyon, and you'll kind of notice at the two sides there's kind of a landscape buffer to kind of bookend the development. The project does have a prominent plaza right at the front, and it's meant to be an active space for the commercial component, as I previously mentioned. And there's different furniture there. There's tables, planters, bike racks. The landscape areas throughout the site kind of help to screen the project from the right of way by providing tree canopy and coverage throughout. The landscaping includes various types of ground cover, but the big thing is that they're low water usage as well. Around the perimeter, the applicant has worked to do basically privacy plantings. That's something that we do for a lot of our single family developments. So this project has basically wrapped itself so that it's not trying to minimize the impact to the adjacent properties. The project does require the removal of 4 protected species, 1 oak, persimmon, palm, and a redwood. In terms of architecture, so the mixed-use building uses very prominent corners and contrasting materials and metal cap to kind of give it a more inviting feel and it kind of break the massing of the structure. While only a portion of the building is, of the ground floor is commercial, the applicant and has coordinated with staff to kind of wrap the building in an aluminum storefront to kind of give the facade a longer kind of commercial feel. And this kind of continues to kind of help provide that pedestrian scale, a more walkable environment. As a way to connect the two sites together, the mixed-use building and the other residential units, they use similar colors, materials to kind of, again, to connect the two sites. So the unit mix, 5 apartments and 18 for sale units. The project, we are required to provide 2 units for sale and 1 apartment unit. All the units would be at 99-year terms. The for sale units would be available to 1 median and 1 moderate income level, and then the apartment itself would be available to very low income households. In terms of the environmental analysis, there was no significant impacts that couldn't be mitigated. We did include some mitigation measures for air quality, biological resources, cultural and tribal resources, noise levels, geology, and soils and utilities. And these are pretty typical mitigations that we've seen throughout the city. Noise levels is making sure that the construction equipment isn't too loud. Biological resources is a lot for the removal of trees and making sure there's no nesting birds. Air quality is construction equipment, that kind of thing. As part of the project, we did update it for the cultural and tribal resources to consult the local tribe to make sure there's no, to kind of work with them to avoid any impacts. We did public outreach and noticing, site signage, legal ad, public hearing notices were mailed out and posted on the city's official notice board and on the city's website. The applicant has also done their own research, their own outreach for the project, and we can talk about that if the commission is interested, but they did their own community meetings as well. As our recommended action, we do recommend the Planning Commission adopt the draft resolutions, recommend that the City Council adopt the mitigate negative declaration, and approve the different permits, the zone map amendment, development permit, tentative map, architectural sign approval, use permit, and true removal permit. And that concludes my presentation for the item.
Thank you, Senior Planner Serrano. Very, very useful. Let's turn to the commission and see if there's anything commissioners have to ask questions. So over to you, commissioners. Raise your hands. First one is Mooney Madepatla. You are on, and then followed by Stephen Charf, and then Sios, and then Commissioner Sanjeev Kapil. So go ahead, Mooney, floor is yours.
So Eric, thanks for the presentation. So pretty useful. Couple of questions. So you said something about community outreach. So what is the response?
So we do our typical required outreach, which is the notices, the noticing board, all that. Dan, the applicant, is here, as well as his architect, Anthony Ho. I think Dan can speak a little bit more as to the outreach that he did as part of the project, and maybe Dan, you can take that question.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. Good evening, commissioners. We did 2 different outreach meetings before we submitted our application to our official application. We had met with staff with some preliminary meetings, and then we had 2 different community outreach meetings. We noticed farther than needed within, I think, a 300-foot radius. The city staff helped us with addresses, and we mailed out invitations to a community meeting on site. We had one on a Thursday evening and one on a Saturday afternoon to accommodate people's schedules. Both of them were attended by over 100 people. I think the total between the 2 of them was 220 or 230 people. I think Commissioner Scharf was actually at one of those meetings. And there was another city council member at that time that also attended. But we took questions for an hour, hour and a half. We had blueprints. We actually had a model built of the project and showed how the underground parking, apartments, and retail would work in conjunction with the residential component. So we listened to all those people at length, Commissioner. Hopefully that answers your question.
Okay. So what is the reception like? Were there any concerns raised by the community? I also want to hear from our city staff, were there any written communications on this project into our city?
Well, let's direct that first to Mr. Shaw. If there are any comments you want to share, and then of course let's go to our staff if there are any comments that were specific.
So the most talked about I'll discuss 2 parts that were talked about at both of our community meetings. One of them was people being interested, as they always are, as to what retail or services might be available to them within their specific walking community. I think this project will become a cornerstone for this area of Cupertino, and hopefully there will be some neighborhood retail and community involvement with that retail. So that was one question that was asked. As Eric alluded to, and maybe even you alluded to, Commissioner Wang, to an earlier someone asking about retail, there's only so much we can do as owners and developers. People need to come to us with an idea or a concept or a restaurant or something retail to put into the project. So we can't force or create anything to be there, but we can certainly help it. The second most talked about topic at our 2 community workshops were the number of trucks and the noise of the trucks coming from the quarry. So we spent a lot of time, which had nothing to do with our project, talking about the trucks from the quarry. It did tie in a little bit because it came to my attention from some neighbors that those trucks were parking and idling in our parking lots at length. And so we said that would probably cease to exist if we didn't have any more large parking areas, and the parking area was underground as it's proposed to be for the commercial and apartments. It'll be a little tough for those trucks to get down in that parking garage. So those are the 2 things that were talked about most. There were questions about architecture and number of bedrooms and things like that, but the concerns were the trucking noise and traffic, and also just some community, what would community benefit be from the retail?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Shaw, for the outreach and as well as sharing the feedback from the community. I appreciate it. Eric, any communication into the city from?
No written communication. I do recall when Dan was doing his outreach, I did receive some kind of process questions from some of the people who may have attended his meetings. Okay. But just generally, what's the process like? What's the project look like? And I think I just answered basically what Mr. Shaw had shared with the city. Mr. Shaw and I did converse about his outreach and kind of coordinated that to make sure it was he can reach the widest audience that he could.
Okay, thank you. So Chair Wong, so I have a few more questions, but I'll yield the floor to others and I'll come back.
Okay, let's go to Vice Chair Scharf and then Commissioner Capil. I have some questions to ask, so I'll wait for you, Commissioner Matipapa, as well. So go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Oh, is it my turn now, or?
You sound great. Go ahead, Commissioner Scharf.
Somebody else was talking. Okay. Yes, I did meet with the property owner. This was a public meeting. It was several years ago when I was on the council. It was on the Saturday meeting. I do recall there were some concerns about the traffic sight lines for the entrance and exit driveways on Foothill. Maybe that can be addressed later. Also, the property owner mentioned retail, and at the time I inquired, given what's transpired with other attempted mixed-use projects in Cupertino, like Trevigna, Montebello, City Center, Metropolitan, where the mixed-use retail doesn't succeed. I was wondering why the property owner was doing retail instead of just doing more housing, which we all agreed that we needed. And I was informed that at that time was different planning department people, that the planning department insisted that the project be mixed use, even though it would have been preferable to do all housing. So I'm fine with this project, but I'm still, as the owner said, they can only do so much in terms of getting retail into a project. And since we've seen all these other mixed use projects in Cupertino struggle, I forgot the Biltmore as well. The turnover is just huge. These businesses cannot survive. So personally, I would have liked to see 100% housing here. If you remember the veranda, it was originally supposed to have 11 affordable units and retail on the bottom, and we took out all the retail and added 8 more affordable housing units, which I think was a good thing to do. So personally, again, I would have no problem with this project. I'll miss Cupertino Bike Shop, but I think this should be all housing. Thank you.
That's wonderful. Okay, thank you for your comments. We'll go to Commissioner Capil and then Commissioner Saxena. Commissioner Capil, floor is yours.
Yeah, thanks for the presentation. Actually, I have a question related to BMR. So what is this is a mixed use development, and I noticed that you mentioned in your presentation, Eric, the two SFRs, single family homes, and one apartment allocated for BMR, correct? Out of 80. And so is that is there as per the guideline, or is that the prerogative of the developer?
Yes, that's per the guideline. So with this project, when it was submitted, the requirement is 15%, and so it's spread between the 2 units. So you get 1 SFR, 1 row house, and 1 apartment. And so the for sale units are median and moderate, and then the apartment for per guidelines is to be at a very low income level.
I see. Okay. So 15% of the total area or total number of units?
Total number of units, and then that's split between the apartments and the for sale units. Okay, thanks. And the second question was that is there because of the retail, the parking, the retail and for the residential is common, or is that separated out? So we parked it for each use to have its own parking met, so that there it's not meant to be shared necessarily, but we would work with the applicant to make sure that the parking is clearly marked for the different users, like commercial park here, residential here, that kind of thing. So that's something that we looked at, but all the uses are parked to be consistent with the city's requirements.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, let's go to Commissioner Saxena. Floor is yours.
Thank you, staff and the developer and people watching the project. For the record, I had met one of the developers' representative, Mr. Koch, last week, who had walked me through the project and the changes. I actually felt that this is the area that doesn't have any commercial space, and this is the only place we have. So I'm personally glad we have some commercial space there. It's near to my place, and I know that commercial complex was a favorite of many people who would be bicycling up and down Hotel. It was fairly busy over the weekend, so I'm glad we have some space there. In fact, I'm wondering if we have some special dedicated bike parking area there, or some of the car parking could be allowed to have bike parking there. That was one question. And the second question for me was also related to the amount of parking there. Do we have any overflow parking? Because we have about like, I think if I remember correctly, about 50 to 20 homes there. I know the homes themselves seem to have a good spot, but what about visitors to the area? Like if I'm having a birthday party and I have like 10 families coming over, how much of space do we have there?
Yeah. So I'll start with the bike parking. So the commercial component and the apartments are required to have bicycle facilities. So on the entrance to the site at the plaza, there's actually a bike parking there. In terms of the parking requirements, so the townhomes, row homes kind of thing, the small lot homes are parked at a rate of 2.8 per unit. So there is a built-in guest parking that goes along with it. So they have the 2 internal and then the 0.8 times 0.8 times 13. I can't do the math right now, but that's also provided on site to kind of do that. That's that guest parking that's built into the code as well.
Okay, thank you. That's reassuring. So we have about 10 extra spots for guests and so on, right? Beyond the 2 per home.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Great. Thank you. I think that was pretty much the biggest.
Oh, go ahead, Commissioner Saxena. Sorry about that. Please go ahead.
No, I think that's pretty much all I had in mind, the bike parking and everything, because this area, the street is quite busy. I'm not even sure whether we're allowed to do street parking on particular spot. So, and it gets a lot of traffic. So street parking is not the safest there. So I'm glad we have enough parking. And I personally like to see some commercial area there because we don't have anything else around this. And it's good to have some shop.
Great. I do have some questions for the applicant, and I'll jump in and then go to Vice Chair Scharf. Just in general questions, I want to know if there are any accommodations made for the existing retail units that are there, Judy's Kitchen, the laundry, I think there's a liquor store and stuff there. Do they plan to come back, or are they going to relocate temporarily? So.
The only active tenant post-COVID was the bike shop. And the bike shop worked with the bike shop owner and helped him relocate to the old Kelly Moore store over on Dianza Boulevard. I was aware that was a development that had been approved, but the developers were not moving forward. And I introduced him and helped him get his business moved over there. I don't know if he's interested in coming back. He talked about retiring actually, but he moved over there and stayed in business. So I hope he stays in business. It's a good community, local owned business, not a giant national conglomerate. So I hope he survives and thrives. But the other businesses were there. The laundromat, the store closed several years ago. The laundromat closed 5 or 6 years ago before we even owned it. So there hasn't really been a lot of activity on site except for the bike shop for the past 3 to 5 years.
Got it. And what's being done, this question to city staff, to improve signage and accommodations for the retailers that are there so that they'll be able to prominently display that they're there? So,
are you referring to the existing users, or to
the new retail for the new retail project?
So, so we do have our sign ordinance, but if there were multiple tenants, they can do a sign program, which allows them to kind of coordinate the signs and work that way. They can also do ground signs. There's certain requirements, of course, but if the applicant were to have multiple tenants, they can go through that sign program itself. If not, there is our sign ordinance that we work with the applicant and their tenant to kind of get the best sign that's consistent with our requirements.
Okay, cool. Just wanted to make sure. So, all right, cool. I guess I'll pass it on to Vice Chair Scharf and then Commissioner Maripala.
Thank you, Chair Wong. I just wanted to make it clear that I would love if we could have successful retail there. I just know that all the other retailers that were there left long before this development started. And I hope you can find some retailers willing to go in there. It's just that I see the other mixed use developments in Cupertino that tried this. and they just cannot keep the retailers. There's just not enough foot traffic for those retailers to survive, and you get a constant churn of retailers trying to establish business and then failing after a year or even less. I mean, we had one retailer at Biltmore that I think they only lasted 3 months before they folded. So good luck. I hope you can find some retailers that can make it there. It is a very heavily used bike route on weekends for bicyclists going up into the Santa Cruz Mountains. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Maripala, floor is yours.
Yeah, so if Eric can bring up the slide where he showed, the mix of units. Like, I want to understand, how many units are for sale versus rental versus, the BMRs kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm pulling that up right now.
Yeah.
Can you see? Is this the slide?
Yeah, this is the one I was. Yeah, so 15 market rate units and 3 BMR units. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay, and so the 3 BMR units are what kind? What type? Like one.
So they would be mixed throughout the site, and there's parameters in our housing mitigation manuals how those units are decided. I'd have to double check that and confirm exactly the unit mix. Again, what I do know for certain is that the units would be 1 moderate, 1 median. And that, but I can't recall how it's meant to be broken up. But I do recall that they're meant to be, throughout the site. I mean, there's 2, but throughout the site, and they're supposed to be of similar build quality as the for sale units.
Okay. So the for sale units, 13 of them, they're for sale, right? So, and then there are 5 that are apartments, like, rentals. Mm-hmm. So is the 3 BMR units now, are they part of, the apartments or not the first?
Well, 1 would be for the apartment. 1 apartment would be a BMR unit, and then 2 for sale. So the way the housing mitigation manual works is apartments go to very low income rental households, or when there's multiple units, but very low at first, and then the for sale go to moderate and median income.
Okay, yeah. Thanks for the clarification. I really like the mix, so I appreciate the applicant and the staff working together. Like, it's a good mix of for sale units and the BMRs and instead of paying a in lieu fee. Building the housing, at location is, I really appreciate it. That's very important, because we do want, BMR units, mixed within the community and stuff, paying the fees and, putting the burden on the city, to go find land somewhere else to build, right? It doesn't always work. So I really appreciate it. On the retail comment, I agree with, Vikram, because, that area doesn't have retail. So I know retail is a challenge in terms of making it successful, but given the bike traffic, and I myself is a biker, so I cross that street multiple times, and I used to go to Cupertino bike shop as well. So it's okay if it moves somewhere else, so long as it's within Cupertino. But I would like to see retail succeed at that location, especially for the amount of traffic that goes through that junction, bike and foot traffic. It'll be nice to have some kind of a retail that serves that kind of people.
Wonderful. Thanks.
Thank you.
Commissioner Capil and then Commissioner Saxena. We've got you set up. See your hands raised. We'll go there, and then we'll start taking public comment as we move into that direction. Commissioner Capil, please go ahead.
Yeah, one question for Eric is that I go through that route multiple times, and it's on a T, kind of a T junction there, and basically the setback from the bike shop, I always noticed that to the main road was very little. Now you are adding so much of development out there, multiple houses and townhomes and apartments and things like that. So I presume that a lot of vehicular traffic will coming into the unit, into this development site and coming up will increase. Is there a plan to widen that road, or is that how is that going to work in terms of the increased occupation of that, because the complex was not so much, the retail was not very active there. I noticed that for 2+ years, that not much was going on there. But now, since you are adding those houses, the lot of vehicle traffic will increase, and that is actually a bike route, as well as the road is not that wide, in my opinion. I don't know. That's my personal opinion.
Yeah, so a couple things happened with this project. One of the things we did coordinate with our transportation division and with the applicant's transportation consultant as well to kind of work to line up the driveways and kind of work to make sure the line of sights were being met for the project, so that basically, you know, the vehicle users and the bike users would be able to see one another when they were using the site or visiting the site. So that was an intended thing, and even kind of lining them up with the streets across, so that they're not running into each other. With trip generation, so when we look at trip generation, commercial usually actually provides a higher number of trips because there's more turnover in the users. So I believe with this project there was a decrease in the number of trips, but that project looks as though the commercial component is occupied. And so looking at that with the new uses of the residential and the smaller commercial footprint, the project itself would have a smaller trip generation. And so that and the upgrades to the frontage, the sidewalk, the line of sights, the bicycle facilities were all kind of looked at to make sure that the project in the area wasn't creating any potential impact to the users of the site.
I believe, Eric, you also looked at the trip circulation. And so we aligned the ingress with McKellen and the egress with St. Andrews. I think that also should help. So, okay.
Right.
Commissioner Saxena. Actually, Commissioner Capillo, are you done? Sorry, didn't want to cut you off.
Just one more point. One thing I noticed is that it's a T junction, so it's on the left and the right. If the high-speed traffic comes in for the bikers, it is going to be a kind of a blind spot unless they come to the, so any kind of a signage or any kind of to facilitate more visibility of the junction will be good actually, because I do bike and I do face the problem that where I reach to that junction, it is not very clear that the fast-moving vehicle is coming on from the left, and you end up taking a left turn, and you have a problem there. So now you're going to increase the traffic there. So probably the visibility has to be better. That's my
Commissioner Capillo, actually on plan set A1.2, you also notice that there are crosswalks for pedestrians that will also create those slowdowns and breakages at the intervals there. So, but I'll send it over to Senior Planner Serrano to see if there's anything else you want to add there.
Yeah, no, I understand your concerns, Capillo, and so we did look at different factors into this analysis, and we can work with the applicant to kind of provide more wayfinding signage and to make sure that the users of the site are aware, to look for different users. The intent here is that it is a mixed-use development, and so we do anticipate pedestrians, bicycles, vehicles, all being users of the site. And so with that, there are certain expectations. I know Public Works has worked with the applicant frequently to kind of work on the design and the frontage improvements to accommodate the different users. But we can definitely look at it a little bit more and see if there's anything more that we can do.
Thank you.
I would like to add, this is Pew Coach Planning Manager, that when the applicant does put in for their improvement plans, if the Public Works Department does feel like it needs some high visibility signs or any minor improvements to reduce those conflicts, they will certainly require those.
Okay, thank you for that additional comment. With that, I'm going to move to the public. We have one comment. If you've got a comment, please raise your hand in Zoom. If you can't find that, there's a raise hand button somewhere there. If not, sometimes it's in the comment section and other additional actions. Commissioner Saxena, we'll go to you first, and then we'll come back to the comments. Go ahead, Commissioner Saxena. You in, or are you just?
I have a comment about the viability of retails. I think for any business, there is a price point where it becomes viable. And I would encourage developers to maybe keep rents a bit low so it is easier for business to establish it. Like it is in the interest of the developers to make sure that the retail thrives here because the city needs retail. We need the revenue, we need the access. We don't want to be driving 10 miles to buy a pair of shoes, which I have done it sometimes. So, as a general guidance to the planning, you know, like if we could incentivize or encourage the new developers to provide rent at a place where the businesses can sustain and thrive, that would help. Because end of the day, it's a pricing problem. It's not just a footfall problem. If you can price that right, people will survive, our businesses will survive. Thank you.
Okay, we will come back to the commission once the public has spoken. Let's go to our first public comment. We're going to go to Jenny Griffin, then to Peggy Griffin, and neither are related, so just in case people are asking. Jenny, please go ahead.
Yes, thank you. There. No, I figured that out. I don't think we're related except way back. Her husband. Anyway, yes. This is a very nice project. I'm very familiar with this site. My brother spent a lot of time getting my mother to go up to the pet store when he was a youngster. We probably got a lot of guinea pigs and items from there. But I just wanted to make a comment about the retail. I'm glad that they are keeping a retail component there because this site is oftentimes, I know that when we were kids, we used to go up and picnic up at the dam and up the in the parks up by the creek. And my mom would sometimes stop and get supplies for picnics, napkins, etc. At the little store that was there. And I think that it's important to remember that there are a lot of homes up there. You do have a lot of traffic. Now we have bicycles. We didn't really have that back when I was a kid. People were very brave. But there is a lot of through traffic that is going up to the park areas back up. Now we have bicyclists. And it might be interesting. You might wind up with an ice cream shop there. You might have maybe a store that would have help with bicycle issues. You might have, it'd be wonderful if they had like a corner cafe or they had like a 7-Eleven type situation. But I was just curious what types of retail they're looking at. Could this site, 4,200 square feet, can that accommodate a cafe, et cetera, et cetera? Or you can even have a beauty salon in there. Also, did you all look at whether eventually Stevens Canyon Road, I think it's called Stevens Canyon Road up there, if that is going to eventually be widened? I never really knew what the plans were at that point. But yes, thank you for keeping retail there. I know it's a challenge, but I think that it is important that we try to provide some sort of retail, as Lisa said, to keep people shopping in town. And even if you sold cookies up there, it might be a good place to stop and get a cup of coffee. Thank you.
Thanks. Appreciate your comments. And I think the average size of a restaurant these days is about 1,500 to 2,000 square feet, just for people to know. We'll go to Peggy Griffin. Peggy, you're up.
Good evening, Commissioner, staff, and Mr. Shaw. I want to thank you for working with Cupertino Bike Shop, getting them moved. I'm disappointed that now they're in San Jose and not here in Cupertino. They were a great resource. I strongly agree with Commissioners Patla and Saxena that we need to have retail in these commercial centers, and we need to find the right kind. We don't need all these nail salons and barber shops. We need things that service the community. And in this particular case, there are a lot of bike users on the weekends and even during the week. Something that I would request that just whatever goes in is not a high volume parking need. If you put in a big restaurant, you're going to need a lot of parking and it's not going to be there. So a wise choice on leasees would help avoid parking problems. But anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Peggy. Seeing if there are any other comments. I thought I saw another comment. Lisa Warren was there. Oh, Lisa, you're back. Welcome, Lisa. Your 3 minutes of fame are up.
Thanks. This is just really a comment in general, as these kind of projects will probably become more of with the housing element and I have seen things happen that when there's commercial involved and retail, where because there's no for sure tenant at the time, and you don't know what kind of activity you're going to have, or what kind of business activity there is in just getting it stocked, shall we say. So, and I didn't look at these plans closely, I will tell you that, but I know other places that have been approved, and I just think, oh my gosh, what are they thinking? There's no room for deliveries. There's, so I just hope that all of these kind of places, there's that thought process. Because even some bigger projects who have supposedly had that thought process, it doesn't work out because it's not thought through well enough, I guess. So it's not specific to this project at all, this comment. It's just, because you're not exactly sure what you're going to have, you got to have plans for worst case scenario. Thank you.
Great comment there by Lisa. I think the 2 major formats that are emerging in these areas for small stores are grocerants, so the blend between groceries and restaurants, something to think about, repair shops, and also places that actually serve also with Amazon-type lockers and locker capabilities that actually drive retail foot traffic there. So just something to think about, seeing that in the research on retail from the National Retail Foundation. Okay, with that, we're closing public comment, and let's move back to our commissioners, if there are any additional questions, comments. Commissioner Madipala, what do you have in touch?
Yeah, I just wanted to expand on what Commissioner Saxena said. Success of retail depends on mostly the landlord being accommodative. I say that from my own personal experience. I used to have a restaurant, and when in a new development, so I opened it, and it ran for quite some time. I didn't make any money, but I was keeping it open for the customers and and for the employees that were working there. And I would go to the landlord often show the books and say hey, here is how it's doing, and I need help. Can you reduce the rent or here and there. The landlord was very accommodative, so I was able to operate it for almost 8-9 years. So then comes the building gets sold, and new landlord comes. Everything changes, right? So I couldn't run it anymore. So I was like, making losses, 2 years in a row, and I had to, close it, right? So the landlord plays a huge role in success of a retail. So I think I'm speaking from my own experience, right? So I kept it open just for customers and kept it open for the employees, and I had to close it, right? So I wish you success with this project, and hopefully you can be that accommodative landlord for the retailers that come there. Good luck.
Thank you, Commissioner Madipala. See if there's any other questions. I'm just going to put some comments in here. I wanted to comment that I understand this has been a very long project and process. There's been a lot of community input. There's been a lot of work with the city and the city staff to make this process possible. I know you've gone through a lot as the applicant. I'm impressed by the way we've looked at parking. I think that's very important here. I like the design aesthetic. I think it's nice to have some modern, contemporary looking buildings in play. And I also like the way it blends in mixed use. I think it's a great way to look at mixed use. That area, when I look at the demographics and I draw a little map around it, is what we call retail desert and much needed. We need basic shops, basic repair things that people need to get to. Like even a small pharmacy would be great for some of the folks there. That also is an aging area of Cupertino, where we see the average ages in that population group actually have been going up over time. So there's certain services that are there. I do have sentiments as well. I wish you luck, as Vice Chair Sharf says, on the retail. It is very hard to do that there. So hopefully that piece does succeed. I think that hopefully our projects in the future work this way. Hopefully they don't take as long, but we work well with applicants in the future to be able to create these mixed use environments that serve the community's needs. I think it's also very important to be able to meet some of the new emerging standards that we have in the community, to be able to actually create the right mix of housing, retail, and of course the right type of environment. So I commend you on that. I think it's a great project. I'm in full support of this. I think the staff has worked very hard to work with you as well to make those accommodations. So that's kind of where I am. Pew, you've got a comment? Please go ahead. So,
Chair Wong, I wish to ask a clarifying question.
Please go ahead.
Currently, this particular project is actually designated for commercial spaces and not solely for retail uses. I did want to make that clarification, just so we're all clear about what uses could go in there. The commercial space uses are a much bigger, retail is just a small subset of commercial uses. So I did want to clarify that and just put it out there.
Yeah, great point. Yeah, it was also
if the commission wishes to restrict uses here, that is something that it could consider, but I did want to point out that commercial uses are more expansive than retail uses.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for that. The zoning is for commercial, so you can put a Russian school of math, which will be very popular. Anyways, go ahead, Vice Chair Sharf, if you got a comment on that.
Yeah, thank you, Pew. That's a good point, because I know at Metropolitan, when they tried to lease it to retailers and were not successful, and they this is before I was on council. They came to city council, said, "Hey, can we change this so we can put in medical offices?" And the city council agreed, because they realized that retail was not possible to be successful there. So, yeah, I think that is a big help, that it's not just retail, that it is commercial, and hopefully they will be able to lease that.
I do have a comment, a little Asian pride. We are the boba capital of Silicon Valley, so please
I
don't
agree.
When
I heard someone say that, we shouldn't have a boba shop, I thought that was very un-Cupertino-like, because
no, just kidding. No, we understand the sentiment. We do need a good mix. We do need a good mix.
Per capita in the United States, we have the most boba shops.
So, also known as EB5 investment vehicles. But anyways, let's go ahead. So. Not to be snarky at this meeting. Any other comments from commissioners? So, okay, well, let's put this thing to a vote. Is there a motion to approve? And you can, of course, approve all 6 parts. I think it's 6. I better double check here. Or in little segments. Actually, all 7 resolutions. So, sorry about that.
Unless we have any concerns about approving, I'd rather do it in once rather than do the same thing 7 times. I don't know what about.
We can do it all 7 at once if you want, unless you have any amendments. We can break them all up too if you really want to. But I think 7. I think we're in agreement. We can all do 7. So let me make a proposal. Is there a proposal to approve draft resolution for EA, draft resolution for Z, draft resolution for the development permit, draft resolution for the tentative map, architectural and site approval, use permit, and tree removal permit? Is there a motion to approve?
Sure, I'll make a motion to approve all
I
of
see
them.
a fight between Vice Chair
Whatever.
Sharf
No,
and
I'll
Commissioner
give up.
Saxena.
Yeah.
Commissioner Saxena?
No,
do
I'll
it.
defer to it's to Vice Chair Shah.
Okay, then I will make the motion to approve all of them.
Okay, is there a second?
No.
I'll second that.
Okay, let's put this to any discussion. Keep our Robert's Rules of Order or modified.
All I can say is I think
Rosenberg's. Yes, that's true. I forgot about that. Too much time in student council. All right.
all I can say is good to see that whole area developed, and I wish the applicant good success. I think what is interesting to me is that it took so long to come to the planning commission. I was wondering if the staff had any thoughts about why it takes so long to come, and whether we can have intermediate reviews along the way, where the planning commission can also give their thoughts on questions which planning might have, or the discussions which are happening out there. Because I know I remember meeting Mr. Kwok a few years ago, and I know COVID happened and everything, but like there's something to be said to make the process more transparent and faster moving. And that's something I would like the staff to also think about and maybe come back with some thoughts.
Let's put that in the future agenda items, not germane to this current discussion, but a great question and point. Okay, any others? Otherwise, we will call for a vote. Okay, Pew or Syra? Which one are we going? Who will do the honors? Syra?
Syra's back. She can.
Syra, how are yours? So.
Thank you and good evening. Commissioner Kapil?
Yeah.
Commissioner Maripatla?
Yes.
Commissioner Saxena?
Yes.
Vice Chair Sharp?
Aye.
Chair Wong?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
Well, congratulations to the applicant. Good luck building. Please build quickly. We tend to approve these things and things don't get built, so we hope you get moving along. So thank you very much for being here today.
Thank you.
Okay, cool. With that, we'll move to item number 2, which is the third item at this moment for those following along here and keeping score. I want to take a 5-minute break just to get everyone there in case you need a bio break. And let's adjourn for a quick 5 minutes and come back at, let's say, 7:56. Let's see, I'll get you with their math. Come back at 7:56, take a quick 5-minute break, let people rest up, get some water, come back. And of course, please join us here if you are following along on Zoom. So thanks, everybody. We'll be back. back. Cool. Let's wait for staff. I think staff was here. Very cool. Okay. Welcome, everybody. We will be back and rejoining the meeting here. Okay, let's go to agenda item number 2, which is now agenda number 3, but we'll jump in here. Okay, agenda number 2, consider development proposal to demolish an existing commercial building and construct a new 9-unit single-family home development with 1 home containing an ADU. Applicant number is a lot of those. The applicant is Allen Enterprise, LLC, located on 22690 Stevens Creek Boulevard, APN number 341-14-066 and 342-14-104 and 105. For those who remember, that's the Bate Brothers store that's there. Recommended action, staff recommends that the Planning Commission adopt the draft resolution recommending that the City Council, 1, adopt the mitigated negative declaration, 2, approve the zoning map amendment, 3, approve the development permit, 4, approve the tentative map, 5, approve the architectural and site approval, and 6, approve the use permit. So, okay, so let's go to the staff report. Who do we have, Pew?
Thank you, Chair Wong. Once again, we have Eric Serrano. It seems to be his show tonight, who's going to be presenting this item to the Planning Commission. With that, I hand over to Eric.
Good evening, everyone, again. I will be presenting on the item. Let me just share my presentation. Okay, can everyone see my screen okay? Perfect. Okay, so again, I'll be presenting on the project at 22690 Stevens Creek Boulevard, or the Bate property, as it's commonly referred to. So the project is located at the corner of Foothill and Stevens Creek. The project is actually 3 different parcels, with the 22690 being the main address. So surrounding the project, you have residential and office uses to the north. To the to the east, you have the Cupertino auto care gas station. South, you have continued residential uses, and to the west, you have residential uses, and then the Monte Vista fire substation as well. The project would demolish the existing commercial building and replace it with a 9-unit subdivision with 1 unit containing an ADU. The project would require a zone change, development permit, architectural site approval, or use permit, tentative map. And the project we recommend the environmental analysis and mitigated negative declaration. So a little bit more background of the project. It has a land use designation of commercial residential. The zoning designation would need to be changed to Plan CG, PCG, which is Plan Development with General Commercial Residential Intent. The net lot area is 0.63 acres, and the gross lot area is 0.78 acres. There's quite a bit of the lot. Quite a bit of the lot that is being dedicated for public improvements along Stevens Creek and Foothill. The density allowed is 15 dwelling units to the acre, and the maximum height allowed is 30 feet. So this is the property or the development itself. It's a conceptual site plan. As you can see, the units are loaded towards the front, towards Stevens Creek and towards Foothill, giving itself a larger setback from the adjoining residential uses. So the height of the buildings is below 30 feet, complying with the general plan. It varies, but below 30 feet. The density proposed is 11.5 dwelling units to the acre, consistent with the general plan. The setbacks, vary from quite a bit depending on the building, but they range from 5.7 or 5 feet 7 inches along the front to almost 82 feet with the setback from the Foothill building to the adjoining residential property off of Camino Vista. The open space, similar to the other project we heard earlier, is consistent with the part of the city specific plan, where there's a range of private open space between 115 and 639 square feet of open space. There is also a common open space that's located in the project in the interior that has 1,475 square feet, or a little bit more than 150 square feet per unit. Parking for the site, it's 2.8 parking spaces per unit. 2 of those parking spaces are located within the residential units. The project. Yes.
Question.
Yes.
Is this Is this in the heart of the city part of the plan?
No,
you said something.
No,
Okay.
what we used for this project was the open space requirements for heart of the city.
Oh,
So,
got it. Okay, because I don't remember. Okay.
Yeah. No, that's fine. So with the unit mix and BMR requirements, there's three different unit types. Unit 1 and Unit 2 both have 4 bedrooms. Unit 3, type 3, I should say, is a 3-bedroom with an ADU. The project would be required to provide 1 BMR unit as part of our housing mitigation procedures, and that would be for medium income household, and the be a requirement that stays at that income level for a period of 99 years. Going into the site planning and architectural design, so the project located at the corner of Stevens Creek and Foothill Boulevard. Access to the site is provided via Camino Vista and Foothill Boulevard. The project has its largest physical separation provided along the rear, which includes a row of privacy trees throughout the development to kind of mitigate any potential privacy concerns from the adjoining properties. Guest parking is also to the rear next to the common open space for the project. And then along the frontage, there's a lot of physical improvements, detached sidewalk, trees to help screen the buildings and provide a more pedestrian-friendly environment. In terms of the architecture, the applicant has introduced various architectural elements and materials to help reduce the massing of the buildings. This can be seen in the different projecting elements along the frontage, and the different materials and horizontal masking elements further help to alleviate the massing of the structure. With the environmental analysis, there was no significant impacts for the project. There are mitigation measures for air quality, biological resources, cultural and tribal resources, noise levels, geology, and soils and utilities. For air quality, it's construction equipment, that kind of thing. Biological resources is nesting birds, making sure there's nothing within the project site. Cultural and tribal resources, we did during the NOI period for this project, we did receive a comment from the Tamiya Nation, and so we updated the tribal resources to include consultation with the tribe and to have a member of the tribe present during construction activities in case any significant cultural resources or resource would be discovered. Public outreach and noticing, site signage, legal ad, public hearing notices were sent to properties in the project area. The applicant also did their own outreach. They coordinated two or three Zoom meetings as well to kind of get some input for the project. And our recommended action that the Planning Commission adopt the draft resolutions, recommend that the council adopt the mitigating negative declaration and approve the zone map amendment, development permit, tentative map, architectural site approval, and use permit. And with that, I'm available for any questions. We do also have the applicant and their team here as well, and in case there's any other questions.
Okay. I'm going to kick this off. I have a question for the staff, and I just want to understand real quickly, what are the general plan requirements for neighborhood centers?
So generally speaking, it should require some sort of commercial component, but it's not explicitly dictated in the general plan as a shell for neighborhood commercial centers, but it's encouraged to have those types of uses that make a mixture of residential or mixture of commercial and residential if warranted.
Okay. When I read it, I think I read it a little bit differently, but I just wanted to start there. Let's see if there are any other comments from commissioners. So,
is there a...
Oh, Commissioner Saxena, go ahead, please. We can't see you, but go ahead.
I'm sorry, because I was busy turning off my phone. So is there are there any guidelines of minimum ratios on that commercial with residential square footage on this neighborhood commercial center? Like what's the precedence? What the guidelines? Does the plan say anything?
Sorry.
I was going to say that Commissioner Saxena, we couldn't quite hear you. You were a little garbled there.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
A little better.
Okay. What I wanted to know was, does the general plan have any minimum requirement of commercial to residential or maximum requirement for these kind of areas in terms of distribution between commercial and residential?
I can try to answer that. The general plan doesn't have any minimums or maximums on commercial square footage. The general plan does have a policy that discusses development of neighborhood commercial centers in a certain way in a mixed-use in a mixed-use village format. But the language of the general plan is permissive. It does not have a lot of shalls. It talks about how a development should be developed with certain criteria in mind. And so the requirement is not very exacting in how the commercial space or how the development should be designed.
Are you saying our language is loosey-goosey here?
It says it should, and that is language that was adopted in the general plan in even prior to 2014, I believe.
Interesting. Okay. Let's go to comments. Anyone else? Commissioner Madipala, please go ahead.
So is there an opportunity to fix the language? Right. I understand, in this case, it's subject to interpretation, and so things were allowed. And if we wanted to respond to the applicant, there is a time frame within which, we should have responded. So that time has lapsed. So I understand, this is a little bit tricky, but at least, to avoid running into this in future, do we need to make some changes?
So that is certainly something that the Planning Commission could recommend that the council look into. In general, though, there are both sides of the coin. In some cases, this does make sense to include retail uses. In other cases, it doesn't. In this particular case, based on certain, conceptual plans that the applicant had drawn up, it did not make it was not very viable to include commercial space on a very small lot, such as this one, particularly one that was losing quite a bit of frontage to, quite a bit of land to frontage improvements that they had to make to accommodate street improvements.
I mean, that side of the city is, retail desert, right? As someone said, you can't find any shop the entire stretch almost for 1.5 to 2 miles,
You go to the Trader Joe's by the time you get anywhere.
Yeah. It's at that junction, Homestead, Foothill Junction. So it's very far off. There's nothing there, right? So, or you'll have to come towards, post office, right? So, I'm kind of a little bit concerned, giving away that option, right? I mean, I understand, this project, it's water under the bridge, but in general, I would like to avoid running into this in future.
Yeah, I mean, the straightforward answer is that yes, for going forward, prospectively, it is a policy decision that Planning Commission and Council can consider to make requirements that to make the requirements clearly mandatory for commercial use in certain neighborhood center commercial nodes within the city. That's just a policy decision that Planning Commission and Council would have to balance flexibility, versus the certainty of having commercial or retail uses at these kind of locations.
Okay, thank you. I have two quick questions, so mostly to Eric. So Eric, the fencing between the property and the neighboring houses, what type of fencing is that? Is it like a concrete blocks, or is it like normal wooden fence?
I believe it's a normal wooden fence, and the applicant has been in constant contact with the adjoining property owners to kind of work with them and to minimize any impacts. They've had actually a lot of contact with them, but and we do have the applicant's architect here. Correct me if I'm wrong, John and Jamie, about the fence. But I believe it's a wooden fence.
Yes, it's a wooden fence, and then it has a consistent line of screening trees beyond the fence. So
I see the trees, but I just want to know what type of fence is that, right? So because it needs to blend with the neighboring houses and all that. So that's good.
Yes, wooden fence, so it would blend with the other homes.
Are these for sale homes or no rentals? What are they?
They are for sale units.
All of them, right?
Yes, correct.
Okay, thanks.
Let's go to Vice Chair Scharf and then Commissioner Capil. Vice Chair Scharf, go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, I do appreciate that they are all are for sale units that will benefit the city, benefit the schools. And I know we all got the confidential memo from the city attorney. I really appreciate that. And I'm just hoping we can avoid this kind of thing in the future and we don't miss out on the opportunity to require the commercial and retail just because we missed that 30-day window. So hopefully the city manager and the new city manager can take steps to ensure that this kind of thing doesn't happen in the future. That's all I have to say. We don't really have much choice here. Thank you.
So kind there, Vice Chair Scharf. Commissioner Capil, please go ahead.
Actually, I have a very basic question. For a certain density of the population in T at any place, is there in general plan the guideline for retail, or just like we have an open space guideline? Is there something that it's a basic amenity, basically, that you need to have some level of retail available in a certain distance from if you have a certain amount of density of population at one place. So just for my education, is there any guideline like that has been exists in the general plan, or it is just a discretionary type of thing?
Commissioner Capil, I'm going to answer that only because we have a situation here. And look, the site is designated as neighborhood commercial residential, which allows residential on upper floors only. See neighborhood commercial residential definitions in the general plan, Appendix A, land use definitions, page A4. That means it's a subset of commercial land use designation. This category includes retail activities, personal services, and limited commercial offices that serve primarily the residents of adjacent neighborhoods. Residential living units may only be allowed as upper floor uses. We missed that. And that's what's the discussion point here. So what the strategy in the land use document 13.1, commercial and residential uses, review the placement of commercial and residential uses based on the following criteria. All mixed use areas with commercial zoning will require retail as a substantial component. The North De Anza special area is an exception. That's it. And so these are neighborhood commercial centers. Neighborhood commercial centers serve as adjacent neighborhoods and provide shopping and gathering places for residents. So retaining and enhancing neighborhood centers within and adjacent to neighborhoods throughout Cupertino supports the city's goal for walkability, sustainability, and creating gathering places for people. That's what LU2 is about, right? And this is really what this was supposed to be. And the goal was to do that to promote, on the business community side, revitalization of retail uses, creation of new gathering spaces, and parcel assembly. This housing element represents the city's priority for residential development. Residential uses should be designated on the mixed-use village concept discussed in the element and like what the other applicant did earlier. That's what's at discussion here. And so I just wanted to put that out there. We'll go to Commissioner Saxena and we'll also go to City Manager Larson. So Commissioner Saxena, please go ahead.
Quite honestly, I live in the Monte Vista area, and I do value the access provided by these stores. And I'm kind of trying to figure out what went wrong here. That if it's so clear, which says that ground floor commercial, first floor residential, where did the mistake happen, and who? Like, are we and the planning commission accountable to it, or the planning staff is accountable for it, or the city council is accountable? But where is the accountability for it? Because it's sort of weird that something which is so clearly stated, first floor and above, this was missed out on. I don't know who to talk to, whether the acting city manager has any thoughts on that. But I'm a bit worried about this.
Commissioner Saxena, let's give the acting city manager a chance to reply, and then also for the staff to reply. Just saying, when staff does a great job, we definitely compliment them. When we have issues, we do need to be transparent and bring in a parent. City Manager Larson, would you like to respond? I guess you get your hand up anyway, so we'll jump you in here.
Great, thank you so much, Mr. Chair. And to Commissioner Saxena and Vice Chair Sharp, thank you very much for your very appropriate and questions. Let me respond a little bit. You know, success has many parents, and in government, challenges do as well. And what I think we've seen here is a confluence of permissive language adopted in the general plan over 6 years ago, as well as new state laws just adopted in the last couple of years that have combined together to create a very challenging situation. And while it didn't affect the outcome of this Bate Brothers application, I'm ecstatic that your staff quickly saw the dilemma created here and has adopted a policy that, and a direction, a management direction, that when there are discretionary administrative or staff actions in the future, they will always be determined to ensure future planning commission and council policy discretion, rather than getting sucked into the new state law that limits policymakers such as yourself, who are donating your time to the city to advise the city council from having the discretion you want to have. And I think that was the right response from staff. And unfortunately, the Bate Brothers was the learning for it based on the staffing that was available at that time, the legal counsel that was available at that time, and many other challenges we faced. I think what staff wants to do is to always provide planning commission and city council with policy discretion to reflect the will of the public through the election and appointment process, but knowing we have to do that within the construct of state law. None of us want to violate state law, so we will always try to operate within that construct and give you maximum flexibility. And I just appreciate your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, City Manager. Well, let's go to Pew first, and then let's jump back to Commissioner Saxena. Sorry. So, Pew, please go ahead.
Yes, I would like to clarify one particular aspect that was raised by the public. That is that the land use for this particular property is commercial/residential, and I can share my screen to kind of go over those definitions. The definition for this particular property is commercial residential. The definition that was being referred to by the member of the public is for neighborhood commercial residential, which does not apply to this property. And the language about the residential living units may only be applied as upper floor uses is on the neighborhood commercial/residential land use designation. So this particular paragraph does not apply to the property in question. What does apply is this property, are these two paragraphs above it, which does not have that particular language. I just wanted to clarify that. And thank you for your time, Chair Wong.
Pew, just a question to staff. I actually looked at the land use map, and I think there is an asterisk there or something that says it's neighborhood centers. So is that an older version, or is that the same version of the map?
That is the correct version, but the land use designation, the definition is different from what the neighborhood designation is. And the neighborhood designation takes you to a different part of the general plan that kind of identifies how the development should occur, but not shall occur. So there is a little bit of nuance there. But again, once again, I do want to clarify that there are certain parts of the city where that particular definition does apply. But to this particular property, that definition does not apply.
Using the gradation of should, shall, must, right? Should being on the left and must being on the right, saying that's severity of that. So, okay, I'm going to go back and look at that, but thank you. So, Commissioner Saxena, you had a point.
Yeah, I actually wanted to delve a bit more with what Ms. Ghosh just said about the designation, and what you said that there was an asterisk that called the neighborhood, but is something else. So what are the three different sections are we talking about? Like where did Commissioner Wong see the asterisk and where don't see the asterisk? Like what are these couple of things we're talking about here? If you could just clarify.
I can try to help with that. I'll share my screen here. This is the community form diagram, and the community form diagram does have this little asterisk here, which if you look in the legend, it does refer to, if I can do this right, refer to it being a neighborhood center. And in the general plan, there is, sorry, one sec. There are land use policies for neighborhood centers, and that is LU 26, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. So we jump to LU 26. That's not a page number. There are policies in here about other non-residential mixed-use special areas, which this is one of. It is the it's the intersection of. It's at the intersection of Foothill Boulevard and Stevens Creek Boulevard. So that this area is one of those other non-residential mixed-use special areas. And it does point to the neighborhood commercial center concept, which is discussed in this particular general plan chapter. And then when you go to that, it does have language that is permissive about the uses that are how the development should occur on this particular site.
And when we go there to the definition of a neighborhood center, what does that say?
There is no definition of a neighborhood center. It's just that all it identifies is that it is a neighborhood center, and that you do have to go to policy LU 26 to look at policies for that. And then it does reference, are you talking about the mixed use village concept?
We do have a definition of neighborhood centers somewhere. I'll have to look.
It talks about, it's not necessarily a definition, but it does talk about it, certainly. It talks about, this is not necessarily a definition, but it talks about what it serves, and it does talk about that. And it talks about it being, again, developed with the mixed use, as a mixed use urban village. And this it is permissive because it says it should be designed on this particular concept, which is discussed below. And that's the permissiveness of the language. And that's where, that's why the development is designed the way it is right now as proposed. This is just informational.
But when I read what's in LU 26, right? It says retain commercial areas adjacent to neighborhoods and retrofit or encourage redevelopment as neighborhood centers in a pedestrian-oriented and bike-friendly environment. Policy LU 26.1, land use, retrofit or redevelop neighborhood centers using the neighborhood center concept discussed earlier in this. I mean, this is on page LU 70, in chapter 3 of the land use design element. So there's a definition for neighborhood centers. I'll challenge you on that, but being polite on that, there is a definition for neighborhood centers that's listed there. So whether it should, shall, must, I mean, this is part of the issue here, right? I apologize to the applicant as we're discussing these things. This is one of the things that are here. Is the applicant allowed to speak during this period? I just want to double check, Chris, or where are we on this?
So the applicant can address any questions that that the commission might have.
Okay. Does the commission have any questions for the applicant? I know John's hand's raised, so I just want to make sure so we can do that. I don't think we have a direct question to the applicant yet, John, but we will get you in here, so don't worry. We'll make sure that you're heard. Commissioner Kapil, please go ahead.
This is regarding this particular development. I just was trying to figure out that the height, because this looks like a different development than the neighboring single-family homes. So if that is the case, then is there a guideline for the height of the fence and the trees around it for the privacy of the nearby residents, or even for the people who are going to reside within this development.
Okay, back to the staff here. Different question. Privacy and transition between neighborhood zones. So
so the project itself is 30 feet or just below 30 feet. And so there is a 6-foot fence that is along the southern property lines. And then along that, there's the different plantings. And so all the plantings would be protected. And the idea is that I think they go in at 6 or 8 feet tall when they're on the ground, and then they grow. The intent of those planting is to provide some privacy screening to the adjoining residences, and those trees would be protected basically in perpetuity for the development. And so any removal of one of those trees would be required to go through a tree removal permit process and be replanted in kind should they ever be, should the applicant or property owner ever wish to remove the trees.
that's smart. Good idea there. Vice Chair Scharf, you're up.
Oh, maybe I missed this, but are there inclusionary affordable units in this? Is this subject to our inclusionary ordinance that requires 20%?
This one's at 15%. They were submitted before the 20% was in effect.
Oh, I see.
So this would require.
Their grandfathered in.
Yeah, they would have the one for sale unit as part of the project.
Oh, how long ago was this submitted? Because the 20%'s been in effect for a while.
It was submitted a few weeks before, I believe.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
So there's one unit or?
It's one unit, and then they would pay a BMR fee for the percentage that's left over.
Right. Okay. I got it. Thank you.
Any other questions from our commissioners here? All right. We'll turn this over to the public, and let's go do that. All right. We've got a number of folks that are asking questions. We got Peggy Griffin, Jean Bedord, and Jenny Griffin. So let's start with Peggy Griffin.
Good evening, commissioners, staff. First, I just want to express my frustration. This is a major intersection in an area that is lacking in retail, and this is commercial. It is a neighborhood center. And when I go through the general plan, could you show my slides, please?
Syra, I think you have them. Okay, good. There you go. Okay.
These are the ones I've sent several different emails, all listing these and highlighting in detail what they say. But basically, there are 12 that contradict the decision that the planning staff has done to allow this project to go through. I know there are rules. All I ask right now is that you fix it. Fix it now and don't let it happen again. We need retail, we need commercial, and these centers with the stars need to stay there to support the neighborhood. And there's the definitions, their policies, their strategies, their goals, and it's very clear. The policies quoted in the staff report are that the building looks nice, that you can walk around it. Those are the policies they pulled out. They didn't pull out any of these that are really critical in sustaining our environment. So I ask the commission to put in your vote a request to make these what the attorney had said, word it the way he said it, to make it clear that this can't happen again at a neighborhood commercial center. I also want to thank the commissioners who pointed out some of the conflicting items. If you could go to the second page, please. Okay, I said that the project requires a general plan amendment. I think that's what it should have done. Right now, the way it is, you're leaving all the neighborhood commercial centers at risk of becoming converted to residential only developments. And we need that support. We need to be able to run to the 7-Eleven or the coffee or tea shop to support bikes. Also, in the staff report, every time they talk about planned development with the P, they say that there's nothing nothing allowed, nothing required. But then they mention R3. R3 does have requirements. One of them is 2 stories. This project is 3 stories, and nowhere in the staff report does it mention 3 stories. So, and the setbacks, it does have setbacks. They should be listed. The R3 setbacks should be listed as allowed, required, so that you don't give the impression that just anything goes, which right now it does. Thank you.
Thank you, Peggy. Let's move to Jean Bedord. Welcome, Jean.
Hello, my name is Jean Bedord, and I am a longtime resident here in Cupertino. First of all, let me say I am thrilled to finally have something happen on that corner. When I moved here 30 years ago, it was an eyesore, and every single city council since then has tried to get some sort of development there that would make it more attractive as one of the main entrances to the city. So this project needs to go ahead. It's the first one that somebody's actually proposed that appears to be viable. Secondly, retail at that corner is a failure. I don't know if you remember a gas station that was about a little bit further up Foothill Boulevard. And I remember they struggled trying to find some sort of retail, commercial thing that would go there. And I remember the consultants saying, if a gas station, the gas station failed, it did not get enough business. And I remember the consultants saying, if a gas station can't make it, nothing else will work. And so, yes, we like, in theory, we like the concept of neighborhood centers. However, there is no foot traffic in that area. And that would doom any other type of service, type of thing that you would want there. You already have one gas station, you have the veterinary clinic, and you have the offices. It is not a viable retail location. Please get this approved and let's get it built and get that eyesore out of there. I think you need to pay attention to the fact that Pew has said that the property owner is giving up substantial area to improve that corner. That's what Cupertino needs, not more dead retail. Thank you.
Thanks, Jean. Okay. We'll move on to Jenny Griffin, Lisa Warren, and we'll get John in there. Sorry about that. I see your hand there, John. So we have recognized you. Apologize. You're on the other screen. Jenny Griffin.
Thank you, Chair. This is Jennifer Griffin. And I'm very, very familiar with this, the intersection there, the crossroads. And in terms of the retail at this site or commercial, now that we understand what commercial is, this is a big change in that we don't have commercial now in the new plans for this project. This puts an added strain on the gas station site across the street. That gas station site does have a snack shack in there. You can buy candy. You could probably get water, bottles of water, etc. So that gas station sort of functions as I don't know what you would call it, a mini 7-Eleven and to some extent. But that also means that in the future, if someone wants to redevelop the gas station site, that means that gas station site is going to have to stay a gas station because there are no other gas stations in the entire area unless you go down the hill toward the Homestead complex at Trader Joe's. There's a gas station there. And I don't know who owns that gas station. I've gone there periodically. My girlfriend has her car service there. But one should probably talk to that property owner and say, hey, do you realize what's happening is that if we're taking away any commercial retail across the street at the Bate Brothers property, that means that forever that gas station is going to have to stay there, because I'm going to say right now, as an essential service, you cannot remove gas stations from those areas. That is a major intersection where people are going back and forth. And yes, it may be a retail desert, but it is a gas station desert. You know, you have car repairs. So we need to make sure that we're not removing every essential gas station types of situations. Like I do not want to live in a San Francisco where you don't have a gas station for 5 miles. That, to me, that is no way to live. It's not fair to seniors. It's not fair to people who use cars, that they have to take people to school or use them for whatever facility. And bike people use gas stations too, to put air in their tires or whatever. It's just not. But yes, so that's kind of beside what's going on with this Bate Brothers project. But we probably need to think about this. I would probably be happier if there was retail or commercial at this project on the Bate Brothers property. I'm not sure how you do that, but that is an isolated area, and it is.
Thanks, Jennifer.
We probably need to think about that. Thank you.
Thanks, Jennifer. Okay, let's go to Lisa Warren and then John Thatch.
Hello. So a lot has been said, but what I want to just mention, there were several people in the community that were very involved, or tried to be very involved, in the redoing of the general plan, the updating, the cleanup. And I can tell you it was a very frustrating process. The council at the time wasn't horribly supportive of residents getting involved. There were very few residents who had an opportunity to meet with a couple staff members and try to tighten up some language in some areas, but it was too little too late. Well, I was grateful that was happening. It just really was too little too late. And language was loosey-goosey. It's still loosey-goosey. That didn't get fixed. And quite frankly, there were comments by staff that, oh, well, we can say, oh, yeah, sure, we can change that to this, but it really doesn't matter because this is just a general plan. It's not specific. That, to this day, makes my blood boil. So I think they're really, especially with the state bills and the effort to rush to get some more protection before December 31st or whatever the deadline is, it needs to be taken seriously, and it can always be loosey-gooseyed up after, but if you don't tighten it up as much as entirely possible before that cutoff date, we're screwed. And we've been screwed. We've screwed ourselves before. So I would prefer that people really be aware of that, because it wasn't very satisfying to go through that whole process and in the end have so much confusion, which also, because of confusion and poor execution of the changes formally of the general plan, really threw a monkey wrench into some residents, a number of residents trying to correct some false advertising during election, and community trying to get a grasp and a grip and control again. And I'm babbling now, but those of you who were here and know this history will understand what I'm saying. So please, and please do whatever is possible to let our new city manager know this history. He's got a lot of stuff to catch up on and to learn. And I'm hopefully trying to be confident that he can do that, but he's going to need help. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Appreciate it. Let's go to John Thatch. Sorry, you've been waiting for some time. I guess we'll throw you into the panelists next here. Let's unmute John and get him going. Let's see here.
Okay. There
We got
on.
that power. I'll do that. There we go.
Okay. Well, I'm glad to hear all the, what the talk and the discussion here, because I think it's all good talk. I think it's something we're faced as an architecture practice is how we go about doing mixed use and what are the possible ways. And I just want to reiterate as far as our process, we did not automatically design homes and try to create a pedestrian character. We looked at how we could possibly do mixed use on this site and different avenues. So we did spend some time and we did work with staff before our final submittal as far as what the possibilities are. It is a small site, 0.63 acres. And again, some area got taken away by right-of-ways and so forth. That was mentioned by Eric. But the thing that, again, 0.63, the height, things like that, made it tough to do the mixed use as far as really creating a viable project, for our client and something that would be attractive, that was mentioned earlier, for Cupertino. And I think that was our task, again, doing something, creating a good buffer to our neighbors, how the street, the parking, the trees, everything work, and still create, like front porches and pedestrian quality, along Stevens. And one of the things maybe in closing, I'd like to maybe suggest for you, I think you talked about changing language, making it firmer. One of the thoughts I'd add to that, as far as you're going to look at that, I would look at some of the zoning items, such as height, such as density, that basically could make mixed use more viable for a developer. And I know that's a tough call as far as, looking at height and different density and things like that. But I think those are considerations if you're looking at language and things like that about what could make a project more viable on, say, smaller sites like this for a developer or for a retailer. So those are things, again, maybe in closing, because I think all this was a good discussion to have. But I think I would add that layer to it as far as that discussion, which I know can be tough with, working everybody and getting everybody on the same page. So that ends what I wanted to say. And if there's any questions of Jamie or I or our client, we're here to answer them. And we're very, again, with staff, we really want to thank Eric for working with us. It's been a long time. And here we are today. Thank you.
Well, John, Jamie, you'll have more time if we've got stuff back into deliberation, so don't worry. So staff, if any of the commissioners actually have any questions for you, they'll be able to jump in and ask you that. Okay. Actually, quick question for staff. What is the height requirement for that area? Eric, just double checking.
And the maximum 30? Height is 30, correct?
It's 30, okay, yeah. And could we have put a 20-unit residential complex in there as well? Just curious, given.
No, not with the density. So
not with the density. So we're limited by the DU on there.
Exactly. It'd be probably closer to double that. It'd be like 30, 40 units in the acre in order for it to work. And then as the applicant, the architect was mentioning, the height, there's different things that kind of snowball with that once you start providing higher density.
No, that's a good point, right? Many people often comment that the west side is not as dense, and there may be some density changes that could occur on the west side. So just an interesting kind of point of view. Okay, and we could put underground parking there as well, like the way the other site had on Canyon Crossing, correct?
You could. That's probably more of a feasibility thing with the project and the different components.
There's no issues with the underground tank, or there's something there that was there before.
You're talking. Yeah, we looked at that as part of the environmental analysis, and there was no impact with that.
No
it was more from the adjacent site was the concern, okay. But there was no impact with that.
We kind of closed public comment by accident here. Just making sure there's no one else that wants to jump in. If anybody does, please raise your hand. You've got 5 seconds to do so. And we will jump back to the commissioners. And we've got Commissioner Madi Patla with a question there. Okay, seeing that there are no other public comments, thank you very much for the public for your comments today. We will go to Commissioner Madi Patla and Commissioner Saxena. Please go ahead.
So I was a little bit surprised to hear, it's a 3-story building, right? So I'm not sure now how I missed it. So Eric, could you walk us through?
Yeah, so in the area of the general plan, it does allow for 30-foot height limits, and it's a hard ceiling. So the applicants worked with the engineering team or public works team to make sure that requirement is being met. They're roughly 29 feet 10 inches or something like that. The adjoining properties can go up to 28 feet, so it's not too much of a height difference or height allowance difference. But it's 3 different stories, and I can pull up the drawings, but I think that the floor or floor to ceiling is about 9 feet for each one, and there's space in between, kind of for building materials and structural members, I believe.
Okay. Yeah, no, I thought 30 feet, no, you could only go up to 2 floors. But I was a little bit surprised not to hear we have 2 floors here. So wanting to know how we did that. So. Yeah, that's yeah. If I have any questions, I'll come back. So go ahead.
Yeah, the third floor units are actually kind of neat. They've got a little roof deck and some kind of weird master retreat set up to the roof deck, which is pretty nice. So, anyways. You're on mute, Commissioner Saxena, please. I will unmute you. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I seem to have lost you in the middle. Yeah, I think many of the commentators raised very valid points. Clearly, that corner of the area of the city could have been better developed. Those buildings were really old. Well, I wouldn't call them eyesore. I mean, because that's our history. That's what we were. So I wouldn't call our history eyesore. But yes, it could have been better developed. The land is quite valuable there. I think, to me, the big concern is the process and the process failures happening out here. Like, the architect mentioned that they would like to have had some more playing, make room to work with. And those are the kind of things which we would like the staff to bring to the commission and discuss, so that, we can be a partner and we go and get things done in a collaborative manner, where we do the best for all the different interests, the interests of the people who live here, the interests of the developers, and the interests of the neighbors who rely on the city to provide them a good functioning lifestyle. And what happens is that when we have these omissions, exceptions, or interpretations which lead to people feeling surprised, it breaks trust. It breaks trust in the process. It breaks trust in the council. It breaks trust with the city planners. And I think if there's one thing which our country needs right now is a greater trust of everybody. They're very, very heavily polarized country, and it's reflecting in so many different things. So I just want to take this opportunity to say that, like, the issues which have been raised by various parties, all of them resonate to me. And I hope we take this as a lesson to actually work together collaboratively, where all the different parties feel heard, and we make the adjustments needed to make things viable while preserving the intent and the goals as set out in the plan. Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner Saxena. Very thoughtful. Anyone else with a comment to add on the commissioners? Commissioner Kapil, please join us.
Yeah, so I was also a little bit surprised to hear that it is a 3-story thing, which was missed out. I didn't hear it in the report. So is there anything else we should be knowing which has not been deliberated out in the presentation? Because this was specifically called out, so we came to know about it. But what this kind of thing raises a doubt that we have to go through it more thoroughly ourselves to understand it better, I guess, and the implications of it. Thanks. That's all I want.
Okay, we'll get on to folks. I read it was a 3-story plan, but I spent 4 hours on this stuff. Anyways, Commissioner Madipala, over to you.
Yeah, so so one of the things that, going through both the documents, for both the developments that we reviewed today, I saw in the city staff report that no setback requirements. So I was a little bit surprised, right? So, and I know one of the residents talked about it as well, right? So can the staff clarify, how we couldn't possibly have a setback requirements on this?
Yeah, so they're planned development, and so for projects that do want to be streamlined, they would follow the R3 development standards, but that would not require any discretionary review. The plan development zoning designation, or the P in this instance, does give the applicant some flexibility in development standards when they kind of coordinate the site to kind of work for the best project. And so in this instance, that's why there's a greater setback towards the rear, and the frontage is, you know, set back quite a bit from what would normally have been their property line. But because of the improvements needed, they really worked with our public works division to try to get as much infrastructure improvements along that frontage. And so it's different standards. If you try to go streamline, you basically you do the R3, but this wasn't that case. So there is more flexibility in these standards.
Okay, yeah. The reason I'm asking is, like, you know, I mean, I didn't see anything, you know, standing out on both of these plans. I looked at them, you know, they look okay, you know, in terms of, you know, how far they're from the pedestrian walk and all that. But, you know, I've seen some neighboring cities, you know, towns where, you know, the wall is right up to the pedestrian walk, right? And people can literally, you know, knock on the windows, right? That's how bad it is, right? So I would like to avoid something like that in Cupertino.
Yeah. So definitely, and the applicant and John alluded to it. They work to kind of have that frontage space, the patio space, but they don't want it to be like uninviting. And so it's very pedestrian friendly along the frontage, and that's why the ground cover, the landscaping, even the materials and the ornamentation of the entrances are all kind of play into that to give it more pedestrian friendly aesthetic.
Yeah, it's not only pedestrian friendly, even, you know, the privacy for people that are going to live in these homes and all that, right? We want some space, right? So between the strangers and, you know, and the people at the house, right? We don't want them to be like, you know, just knock on the window, right? So
right.
Thank you.
Let's go to Pew, and then I do have some comments. I do want to talk to John and Jamie and brainstorm a little bit there. So Pew, please go ahead.
Yeah, so the R3 standards that are allowed in the planned development zoning district was one of the measures that the city put in place in order to avoid confusion when a streamlined project is proposed in a planned development zoning district. So the planned development zoning district offers two paths. One is you can just develop on the R3, which is for multifamily units, which are attached multifamily like apartments. So you use those standards, and if you were to build to those standards, you could pursue a streamlined development. In the alternative, you could go through the discretionary review process and propose alternative standards for different unit types, such as for sale units, row houses, townhomes, single family homes. So, however, depending on the type of development that you're proposing, you would propose standards for those.
Great point, Pew. Thank you very much. All right, I want to spend some time with Jamie and John here. Let's do a little brainstorming. Let's say we gave you 4 stories, a little bit more density. What would you build there? What's viable?
John, do you want to take that?
Yeah, I'll take that. I guess, can you hear me? You can hear me. I guess the question brainstorming, I guess I'd have to get down the sketch paper. The big thing about going 4 stories, the thing you also need to realize about retail is you want to go about 15 feet with a retail space to really create a space as far as ductwork and things like that. The other item you'd really want to go on a site like this is you'd want to go underground parking, which, like people talked about, it's really, really expensive to do underground parking and where construction costs are today. So part of it is, be honest, is, some degree is get out some sketch paper and start looking at it again with those criteria, but that's not the criteria we have today. I mean, I would love to participate with the city, and talking about possibilities and maybe these areas besides, like I said, besides the language, what would be possible. Because I think sometimes that's maybe what's missing maybe is, you put numbers on things, and I think it's maybe sketching things out and brainstorming. What does that mean? And what, like you just said, if I did 40 feet, if we did, underground parking, if we did this and all the requirements, but it'll be quite a different project than we have here today. But it's something I would welcome, to join the city and looking at something. And it might be a gathering, a study force of maybe also a couple developers that I would suggest for maybe these areas. But the small sites are tough. I'll be honest with you as far as looking at that.
Let's give you 45 feet You got mechanical that you got to cover. I totally understand. You need 10 feet on the retail at least.
Well, if I have 45 feet, I have 4 stories. I'm probably doing something 50 to the acre. Is probably what the client would want to do. And we probably
Let's give you 40
get
D.
5,000.
Just give you 40 DU.
Okay, give me
and a
40 DU
VLI,
and maybe
some very low income units there just in case. Something for the developmentally challenged maybe that we could do. Extremely low income.
Yeah. Well, I think, okay, let's say 40 to the acre. It's maybe 3 and 4 stories high. You'd have maybe 3,000 to 4,000 feet of commercial, and again, you'd have the whole site. You have underground parking and maybe a few surface spaces and back. The other thing you'd have to look at, as far as our site's only 75 feet, property line to property line. You would probably have to look at your neighbors. We're going tall. You'd probably want to look at the back being tapered. So you might be right about, maybe it's 35, 40, because you're going to want to probably create a 45-degree angle in the back, what other jurisdictions have, do like single family neighborhoods. So that's another aspect that, hurts, creates a more complex building, the garage and then tapering it. But those are things maybe to take a look at, as far as if again, and some of these tight sites like this, bigger sites, you have more room to maneuver. But this is, again, 75 feet deep at that narrow spot. So
no problem. I'm just thinking we're sitting in like El Camino Real, somewhere in Burlingame, we could probably pull that off, right? Right. This is a little bit more residential, but I'm just trying to understand where we are. My challenge here is a little bit different. I know Commissioner Saxena want to jump in, so go jump in. I'll jump into my part.
Yeah, actually, I wanted to understand this. Mentioned that underground parking is more expensive. And I wanted to understand a little bit of the math behind that, because to me it looks like we get an earth mover, we remove the earth, we pour some concrete, and we have literally created one floor space in somehow. We have created more space for everything, but clearly it's not like that. So I wanted to understand a little bit of the numbers behind that.
Well, it's right now, I could be off on the negative side, $75,000, 75,000 to 100,000 for a parking space. Part of what happens with the garage is you dig it out, you got to make sure it's drained, you got to waterproof it, and then the concrete, you got to form it. It takes time to form it, all the rebar. Again, you're doing the foundation, then you got to form the upper floor. And then, again, you got to, whatever you're doing on the upper floor is exposed as far as waterproofing and things you would not have to do with just a wood frame on grade. The other thing is also time. Suddenly you're looking at a 6 months or longer construction time. And part of what we haven't talked about here is what land prices are. Land prices are just up there, which, where, again, our clients start from. So all that sort of, again, most of our clients are looking at ways they don't have to do garages. They're actually looking at, it's interesting right now. Again, construction costs just have gone up, 20 to 40% over the last 2 years, probably 40% over the last 2 years. So that's something that's happening. I mean, that's unfortunately, that's what we're trying to do, and looking at how we can be more effective.
Okay, thank you for that. Let me go back to my line of questions. Oh, Commissioner Saxena, you got more?
Yeah. So would rooftop garages with an elevator be cheaper now? I mean, I know a lot of other countries have those vehicle elevators. Have we thought about those kind of things, like where we get more creative in utilizing the land and striking the balance? What's the?
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I'm just going to have to bring this back to the agenda. I think we've gotten a bit far afield. Although this is a very interesting discussion, and I hate to interrupt it, but I'm afraid I have to request that we do that.
Okay. Germanus, a point of order and Germanus here from our city attorney. So let's go there. My line of question is a little bit different, right? And this is actually my challenge. We broke a first principle. We broke the first principle, which is really the general plan. And to do what we needed to do required a general plan amendment. And that's where I'm at odds, right? And I know how much work goes into this. I know how much planning goes into this. And I'm frankly appalled. I'm appalled that we missed this, right? Especially in a time where everything's ministerially approved and we're relying on city and the city staff to make sure that we follow appropriate legislation and that we catch things before they occur. Things don't expire, right? We don't miss deadlines. We file documents in order. And this has been going on for decades. That's why we have a new city council. I mean, that's why people were voted out. That's what was going on. And we have residents are like, oh, that's just disregard the rules. It's okay. We need more housing. Like, hello, don't we have rules for a reason? That's our job as a planning commission, right? That's our job as a planning department. That's our job as a city. I mean, come on. I mean, that's what we're about, right? So yeah, you could want more housing in that area. But once again, I do respect the fact that we need more housing, we need more density, we need more services, and there's a lot of effort here. And so I'm trying to think about, is there a way, and this is really directed at, Chris, and maybe there's a way here to keep this germane, is there a way that we can go back and say, let's figure out a general plan amendment and let them build the thing that they want to build there? Right? Is it 4 stories? Is it 45 feet in height? Can we have proper setbacks? Can it be financially viable? Right? If they had to go back to the drawing board, how can we get a win-win here so that the efforts that you have aren't completely wasted? We respect our general plan amendment, and provide a general plan amendment so that we don't set precedent, a very bad precedent in neighborhood centers, and come to like some kind of win-win. I mean, that's where I'm at. Right? Because I'm going to vote no if we can't get to a win-win. But even if I vote no, I want to see this project through. I want this project to be successful. Right? I want people to build something that's viable there. I'm just appalled. I was appalled at the Environmental Review Committee. City Council person Kitty Moore was appalled. I mean, we're just appalled. Like, how the hell do we miss these deadlines? Right? And I don't want to set a bad precedent. Right? But I also want to support housing. I think there's some great things we can do, get a little bit more density. We can get some more units. You guys could be a little bit more profitable. We can get some, developmentally challenged housing. We can get some commercial space that doesn't go away. I mean, there might be a win-win out of this. You might lose like 3 months out of this, 2 months out of this, but maybe there's a way we can pull something together. And that's kind of where my head's at. I'll go to you, Vice Chair Scharf. Go ahead.
Well, I appreciate that, Chair Wong. Unfortunately, this got through the cracks. We all got the confidential memo from the city attorney. I don't know if it was today or yesterday, and hopefully we all read it. So, I will be voting yes. We don't want to subject the city to any lawsuits. The state law is pretty clear. And yes, I think we would all like something different, something better. But it seems like, Chris, you can kind of correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like we don't have a lot of options here, based on what the state law is. So, I will be voting yes. I wish this was different, but, this fell through the cracks. The acting city manager, said hopefully it won't happen in the future, and we'll have to work harder to prevent this from happening in the future.
Vice Chair Scharf, this has been happening forever.
I know. You are right.
It's not going to happen in the future. We keep missing this stuff, like basic nuts and bolts stuff. I don't mean to put anyone through the ringer here. I'm just saying, come on.
Well, that's up to the city council and the city manager to take appropriate actions to stop this from happening in the future. I'm not going to go any further with that.
Look, our previous project was amazing. The city staff did a great job, great collaboration. It shows what the best the city could do, right? I commend the staff on that. This is like the opposite. I'm like, what the heck, right? So let me ask this. Can we get a second opinion with the city attorney? Like if we can, figure out if we can vote no or make this happen, or can we work with the developer to figure out how to get them the stuff that they really want to build? I mean, are we really just have our hands tied, this falls through the crack, and we build a project that we're not happy with and set a bad precedent?
Yeah, I guess I don't think that this project fell through the cracks. I think there was an interpretive decision that was made by staff, and in a certain sense, it's delegated to staff by state law. I think what the intent is moving forward is that when there are interpretive questions, whether they're close, whether they're arguable, is for staff to look at ways to make those decisions in a way that preserves maximum amount of discretion for the planning commission and city council. But that decision, has already been made here. it was made by staff. In a certain sense, that's the way that the state law is intended to function. And I think we can fix it going forward. With respect to this specific project, the developer has certain rights to go forward, with this project. If they chose to go forward with another project or a different project, that's possible, although I would be surprised if they were interested in doing that. But they're of course here and can speak for themselves.
That's a great question. We don't want to put you on the spot, John and Jamie, speaking on behalf of the developer. I just put it out there as chair. I would be open to a conversation to allow you to find and file a general plan amendment to allow you to build something much more suitable for that project, meet your project economics, and also meet the community needs. That's where I would be. I want to make sure that we clean up our bad language throughout the general plan. We've been trying to do that for quite some time, so there isn't that interpretive measure around there. So that's kind of where I stand. John, Jamie, I think you want to jump in. John, I think you unmuted yourself there.
Yeah, I'd say at this point, and knowing what it takes to make everything you were talking about and the time frame, speaking for my owner, he's not going to want to do that, just because, again, all the things you talked about, it's going to take a long time to do that, and we've already spent a lot. It's been a long process. It's been over 2 years. So, speaking for my client, I think we sort of stand by what we have now. Understand everybody's concerns, but we've done a lot of work. We've gone through a lot of things as far as what we've done to get to this point. So I guess that's trying to be as polite as I can about it. But that's, I think, where we stand with our client.
Okay, thank you for sharing.
Jamie John, I had a question for you, and Jamie also. It looks like it took 18 months or more like that to get this to this point, right? If I'm correct. But could you share your thoughts about where the process was slow, where the process was fast, where was it stuck? Was it COVID? Was it because 18 months is a long time, and for somebody who's planned on a couple of million on that, it's there.
Well, I think Eric alluded to before is, there's been staff changes. There's making sure there's a lot more rules as far as making our package is complete. You can look at our package, it's 80 sheets. So part of, to be honest, what happens is everything we have to do now as architects and doing our submittal. So that would be something I think all my clients would like to ask, besides how can we, make packages and what we do simpler? Because I think a lot of the stuff can be done after approval, but a lot of it was, again, sort of the minutia of, look at those 86 pages and continually changing rules as far as things we'd have to have in the submittal.
And the environmental review was a very lengthy process. So we had a submittal submitted, and then it sat for like 6 months or 6 to 8 months just waiting for the environmental review to be completed. So that was a really lengthy process as well that, ostensibly could have been faster.
Yeah, and a big part is COVID. I mean, just what's, I think slowing things down and so forth.
Okay, thank you for that feedback. I think you're done with your question. Anybody else with any comments from the commissioners?
Okay, so I just wanted to make sure about one thing, that while I think at least some of the people here feel that a general plan amendment would have been the better way to go, but Chris, you feel given the circumstances and how the state law is written, that's not something which is desirable from, just to confirm that once again with Chris.
So I think, generally I'm hesitant to give this kind of advice in public, but I think it's important for the community to hear it. And so, they understand the position that you're in, is that I think it is difficult to insist on a general plan amendment because at this point in the project, for the reasons that were stated in the memo that was provided to you.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think it's good to hear it loud and clear, and thank you for doing that. I'm done.
Okay. Anybody else with any comments before we go? Okay.
Yeah, no, I would like to thank the community member Peggy Griffin for bringing this whole thing to our attention. And that's kind of the community that we have, right? We pay attention to little details, right? So that's what makes this community great. So I really appreciate it. Thank you, Peggy.
Okay. All right. Is there a nomination? Is there someone that wants to put this to motion? And if there's anything anybody wants to do you want to do it all at once? Kind of like we did the last one. Do you want to do it in parts? I'll leave it to you guys. If anybody wants to make a motion, please.
Do you want to take a straw poll of what everybody feels?
Oh God, straw poll. I haven't did that since high school. All right, cool. Straw poll. Where are people on this vote? I mean, sure, go ahead, jump in. Where are you, Commissioner Saxena?
I think after what Chris told me, I would follow what his advice. I think we made our concerns very clear and we had a big discussion. So I would go with what Chris is suggesting, that even though a GPA would have been an ideal situation, but perhaps we don't have that window anymore. So let's table that. And let's discuss this, assuming the GPA is out of the table and a yes, no after that. That's what I would suggest.
Commissioner Kapil would like to share your point of view at this point in time.
Yeah, I mean, it's been articulated by Chris. So we will go, although this is a patchwork, basically. That's my opinion.
Okay. Commissioner Maripala?
Yeah, I guess this is too late in the game, right? So that should have happened early in the stage. And second, yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, not the best project, but I think to me, this at least meets some criteria, if not all. So.
Okay. Vice Chair Scharf, any comments on your end?
Oh, I will follow Chris's advice. And on the plus side, I'm thrilled that these are for sale units. Mm-hmm. And, hopefully in the future we can fix the issues that we've all discussed here today. So I will vote yes.
Kind of where my head is as well, right? So for sale units, awesome. And, it's the opportunity, for the GPA and all that. So, and yeah, we should plug the hole for future.
Well, just for John and Jamie's sake, I have read all 80 pages of your filing, and I do like the white duck stucco and the long something western cedar for your aluminum siding. Some great color choices and palettes there. I think the design aesthetic is great. So those were noticed. So we do read these things, and just so you know, I think I'm just very, very disappointed that we did not catch things in time. I have to vote no, mostly because of a policy perspective, but that doesn't mean the other commissioners do. It's not because I'm in favor of more housing. It's not in favor of density. It's just that we have rules. We have rules, and we rely on our staff to enforce those rules, to manage those rules. We had a lot of issues in the past, from Valco all the way on to here. That's why we have a new city council. That's why people were voted out. That's why these things are here. We have a very active residential community. As you can tell, they actually look at the details. I think I turn to my residents more often for rules about things I didn't even know about, and especially for long history. We have people that have been coming to these meetings for a very, very, very long time. That's why we have them here. And as a commissioner, our job is to reflect our residents and their wishes. But I do understand the position that the city attorney's taken, his wise decision there, and council. So, but I will have to vote no, and that's where it is. It's not because I don't like the project, nor have I read the project. I have gone through it. I've gone through the site and have looked at that. So, okay, well, let's put the motion for a vote. Anyone want to make the motion? Actually, let me make it easier for you. Let me read out what the agenda items are so we can actually pull that. So, the motion is, go ahead.
So we could do all the 6 or 7 at one go, I think.
Yeah, ideally that would make our lives a lot easier, and for city staff as well. So here's the motion. The motion is to approve, to adopt the MND, the mitigated negative declaration. I just forgot what that stands for. Approve the zoning map amendment approve the development permit, approve the tentative map, approve the architectural and site approval, and approve the use permit. Is there a motion to approve? Who wants to make that motion?
Sure, I'll make that motion.
Vice Chair makes the motion. Do we have a second?
Okay.
Anybody have
I'll
a second?
second it.
Okay.
I'll second it.
All right, cool. Any discussion? Otherwise, we'll get into a vote. I think we've discussed this to death, but okay. Syra, off to you. So,
Commissioner Kapil,
Aye.
Commissioner Maripala,
Yes.
Commissioner Saxena,
Yes.
Vice Chair Sharp,
Aye.
Chair Wong.
nay.
Motion carries 4-1-0.
Okay, we have that. So, off to
Thanks,
City
John.
Council. So, congratulations and good luck there. So,
Thank you.
thank you for joining us. Appreciate that, John and Jamie, for representing your developer.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good luck with the project.
Yeah, good luck with the project.
Thank you very
And please build right away. Don't get that thing
Yeah.
approved and like let that thing sit like some other developers who aren't doing their job. So,
We definitely hope to do that as soon as possible. Thank you.
yes. Okay. So, all right, cool. All right. Well, with that, I don't think of any old business. I don't think of any. Do you have any new business, staff? Anybody? I do. Read your homework. Read the freaking HCD and like all the development stuff. It's coming, right? We got our housing element. So please read up, look at all the old stuff. Read your planning, like go to the Planning Commission Academy website from like 2 years back or a year back. Read up on stuff. So if you can, super important. Okay, cool. Staffing commission reports. Anybody?
There are no staff reports.
Okay. Commission, any reports? Vice Chair Scharf, what have you been up to?
Well, I think we all got the letter from the Loma Prieta chapter of the Sierra Club, as did the City Council. And I do want to point out that the Sierra Club did oppose SB 35, even though to no avail. And they had some very good points about the need to balance commercial and residential development. And, they used the proper number of 150 square feet per employee. So I went back and did the calculations on the Valco SB 35 project, and it's just shocking. I mean, SB 35 was ostensibly to promote more housing, and in reality, as we all know, it does the exact opposite. The state has promoted a 1.5 to 1 jobs to housing ratio, and that project is about 5.7 to 1. So we all know that this initiative is coming next year on the ballot, and we really need to look at that carefully. Thank you.
Okay, let's go to our planning team. Pew, you have something you want to add? Please jump in. I'm sorry, you're on mute. Let me get you on mute.
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry, Chair, I just recalled, I do have one announcement to make with regard to the upcoming work program items. I just wanted to remind the Chair that at this point is the time when the Commission will be thinking about work program items to forward to the Council for its consideration. And we will probably bring that item in December for the Planning Commission's considerations. It's just a prompt for you all to think about work program items for next year.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. Very important. Good homework for folks. So in case you're bored in Thanksgiving, nothing better to do, definitely jump in. So thank you. Anyone else? Commissioner Kapil? Sorry, you were unmuted. Okay. I've been attending these Cali meetings and looking at what's going on with these initiatives to take back local control. Redondo Beach Mayor Bill Brand has been launching an initiative to protect zoning. I think it's becoming a statewide initiative. For those that are interested, I think that's very important. They're gonna need about 1 million signatures to be placed on the November 2022 ballot, and signatures must be collected pretty soon, 131 days before the vote. This is to combat SB 9, which has been taking away our local community choice. And so this is the community's choice at communitiesforchoice.org. You can kind of take a look at that. There's a statewide initiative to take back control, give us back our local land use control back, so that we can actually make our decisions This effort is it's polled at 66% of people in favor, so it's going to be interesting to see how this turns out. Also been spending some time looking at different density, mixed use kind of communities. I was in Dubai checking out how they do their density and how they do their development, and also have been looking at what's been going on in cities like Frisco, Texas, and Las Vegas. So go ahead, Greg. You've got something to add. I'm sorry. Our city manager is on mute still. Not sure how to get that, but he's got thumbs up. We can see you. We can't hear you. I'll come back to you. We'll check your audio. Commissioner Maripatla, and we'll go back to Greg in a bit. So.
Sure. Yeah. No, I feel pretty good about now approving 27 units of housing today at those two sites. So, that's great. So thanks for everyone, comments and hard work on this, the staff and the commission. So I really appreciate it. And hopefully, people that constantly badmouth Cupertino take note of it, right? So there are some people, their full-time job is, to badmouth, the city, even though the city is doing great, on a lot of fronts, but then unfortunately, that's the reality that we live in.
Okay. Let's go to city manager. Let's test your audio again. Let's see if we get you on.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I fixed my audio, so thank you. I just want to say first, thank you to the commission. Planning commissions are often the toughest job in any city because you don't have the stature of being a council member, but you're doing the hard work. And you had a couple of tough cases tonight that you had to go through, and you did it collaboratively and collegially and thoughtfully. So thank you for that work on behalf of the city. I had hoped to attend a couple planning commission meetings. Unfortunately, I think tonight will be the only one because my service with the city ends in a couple weeks. But I just want to thank you. I want to thank your attorney. I want to thank the city staff. Everybody is committed to doing what's best for the committee. Staff has to follow the direction of prior city councils as well as the law. And so they often feel somewhat constrained. But I do know that everybody works towards the best interests of the community, just as all of you do. And I just want to thank you again for your service. So thank you.
Thank you, Greg.
Yeah. Thank you, Greg. We want to thank you for filling the gap, right? So between the two managers, so you did a pretty good job. So I really appreciate it leading out city during this time.
Yeah, if I had to say something, I would say I'd encourage the staff to bring issues or bring developments where a GPA can really make a difference, like especially if they're like smaller lots and so on, where a few small adjustments here and there can allow something really better and something which works for more of the interested entities involved. Part of the charter of the commission is to be making those exceptions when and if they help the overall community and preserves the developers' rights and everything. So I'd encourage you to doing more of that because we are here and we love to give our ideas and our thoughts to make things better.
Mr. Chair, if I can respond, having been the community development director for both Scottsdale, Arizona and Santa Cruz, California, and it's hard to imagine two cities who approach growth and development more differently than those two cities. This is the tough work of every city council, of every planning commission, and of the staff, is balancing those issues of preserving your place and shaping your space and what is it you want to do and be, and the widely varying community interests of property owners and neighbors. This is the tough work, it's the hard work, it's the good work of what cities do. And since I'm leaving in 2 weeks, I can say it, I'm so saddened the state is trying to take this authority away from us. But that's probably as far as I can go as a public official, but I'll stop there.
Hey, sorry about that. I got cut out thanks to a little Comcast outage here. But want to thank you and thank you for your service. Really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Close out there. So sorry about that. So
I think Stephen wants to say something.
Oh, I want to echo what Commissioner Saxena said, and also what the architect said today. You know, once they've started the plans and completed them, that's not the time, you know, for a general plan amendment. It's way too late. They're not gonna, you know, come back and start over. And I had this discussion with another property owner who has a project in our housing element, and asked them, hey, you know, this is a great location for you to go a little taller and put in some more affordable housing. Why don't you ask for a GPA? And they said, you know, the project is designed, we're done. You know, we're not going to go back now and go through that whole GPA process, which could take another year. So we really need to be proactive. If we see a site that really could support additional housing and additional height and density, you know, we need to be proactive and encourage that property owner to ask for a GPA. And by the same token, some sites are not appropriate for GPAs. And we saw that with the Oaks, and, you know, we followed through. We ended up with a decent project by not granting a GPA. So thank you.
looks like City Manager, go ahead. You have comments. So
Yeah, the chair is still there. I just want to thank you for your opening comments, along with Planning Manager Pugh and with former mayor and former chair, vice chair Sharp's comments. You know, with what the work this commission has this next year with the housing element, I mean, the state has set insurmountable targets for every city in the Bay Area. But Cupertino, working together, can come as close as any city can, but it takes that sort of creativity that was just talked about. Where is it appropriate for the community to do what's needed to meet the regional needs? And you're going to spend more time in the next 13 months on housing element than you'll ever hope to spend in the rest of your life combined. But that's the big work ahead for Cupertino and every city in the Bay Area for the next year. So I'm just gearing you up for that hard work ahead. But it's where creativity, like the Honorable Mr. Scarf mentioned, like Chair Wang Open, and Manager Pugh Ghosh mentioned about the workshops and work ahead with the work program. That's the important stuff that's going to shape this community for 20 years. And I just challenge you all to step up for it. It's going to be hard work, but the repercussions if you don't do it are so severe. I live currently in a community that tried to pretend the housing element didn't matter. And, you know, the community suffered because of it. And it's just, you have to follow those rules. In any case, we're way off agenda. I just went to say goodbye. I think my attorney's giving me the high sign. Some might be the cut it off sign.
I mean, go. So, no, thank you. Welcome, thank you. And yeah, with that, you know, I don't think there's any comments. I can't see anything here. I'm on a Zoom screen, so we'll see what happens. But with that, welcome. And we are going to end, and this is, we're going to end the November 23rd, 2021 Planning Commission meeting of the City of Cupertino. This meeting is now adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody.
Happy Thanksgiving all.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.